We've all been there. A speeding ticket. And not just any speeding ticket. A speeding ticket while on a trip abroad. And that comes with all kinds of problems, like late penalties and foreign language barriers, or government websites that only accept obscure ways of payment. It's time for a revolution. With PayTicket, your foreign parking ticket problems are a thing of the past. Simply input your information, such as name, email, and country of residence. Take a quick photo of your ticket, plug in your credit card details, and click Send. And PayTicket will take care of the rest. No matter what kind of traffic or parking violation you may have to pay, PayTicket makes it easier. Simple, fast, hassle-free. That's PayTicket.
That's all right. No, this is true.
Stunning video templates. Each video maker is carefully designed to look professional. Our video makers are super easy to use and let anyone with an internet connection create high quality videos in seconds. Edit logos, mockups, videos, and design templates with just a few clicks. Each template is carefully made by design experts, so your work will always look great. Get started with the best video maker at Plazy.net.
More. Or so he tried to convince himself. He closed the file, locked it in a drawer. The Luke Hollander case was closed long ago. Violet Sperry's homicide was fresh, but unrelated. And again, remember, not yours. So what? He said aloud. Jurisdiction issues hadn't stopped him in the past. He was pretty sure they wouldn't now. Chapter 10. Rachel followed Lila into the house, walking across the marble floor of the expansive foyer, where the stairs swept upward and an antique chandelier Kate's mother had restored glittered grandly. Suspended from the ceiling 3 stories overhead, the crystal fixture had been Sandy Lou's last renovation to the old house before cancer had claimed her, a sparkling reminder of the frailty of life. At least that's how Rachel saw it as she stepped into the living area where the committee members were gathered, preparing for the best reunion this town has ever seen, according to Lila. Yeah, right. She took a deep breath, looking past the eclectic blend of period pieces, antiques, and modern furniture that she'd seen during other visits to the baby grand piano, positioned near the bay window, and the hardwood floors that gleamed, shiny and cold. The walls had recently been painted a dusty rose that Lila had discovered and referred to as period authentic. Lila's new sound system was cranked, and Rachel heard the familiar refrain from a song from her school days. The retro music seemed forced, almost haunting. Of course, Mercedes was the first person she saw. Perched on the edge of a curved couch, Mercedes was in a deep, whispered conversation on her cell. Short, curvy, exotic-looking, and smart as a whip. Her black curls were tossed over her shoulder as she talked, her eyebrows pulled together in concentration. Rimless glasses were propped over the bridge of her nose. Her skin was still flawless, a smooth mocha color, her eyes big and expressive, her lips compressed. With her free hand, she typed on the keyboard of a laptop propped open on the glass table. Rachel remembered her, the girl who was always whispering, listening for gossip, the editor of the school paper. She glanced up, caught Rachel's eye, and the corners of her mouth tightened almost imperceptibly as she quit typing long enough to pick up a can of Diet Coke and take a long swallow. "I want to talk to you," she mouthed, still listening to whoever was on the other end of the call. Great. Rachel's stomach clenched as she scanned the faces around her. All of these adults had been there that night, every last one of them. Her gaze shifted to Nathan Moretti, seated a cushion away from Mercedes and engrossed in his iPad. He glanced up. "Hey, Rach." He slanted her that friendly smile that he'd flashed her on the day Luke had died. Oh, God. Her heart nearly stopped at the memory. 20 years ago today, Nate had been behind the wheel of his black BMW, parked in the driveway near the huge pine tree, obviously waiting for Luke. The window of Nate's Beamer had been rolled down and he'd caught sight of Rachel hurrying across the patchy lawn. "You coming tonight?" he'd asked. "Shh! Oh, I get it. Mom doesn't know, right?" He'd laughed. "No, I can't." She'd shaken her head vigorously as she'd reached his sports car. "Afraid?" She hadn't been able to admit it. No. Would he just shut up? She'd cast a worried look at the house. But that hadn't been Nate's style. "Oh, come on, it's gonna be awesome." He'd glanced at the house where she and Luke resided, a 50s ranch home like all of the others on the street. "You'll have a blast, I promise." Before she could argue, Luke had hurried out of the front door, his backpack slung over one shoulder, his blonde hair tossed by the breeze as he'd loped down the cement walk. Nate had leaned out the driver's window as a squirrel began to scold from the gnarled branches of the pine. "Tell your mom you're staying with a friend," Nate had suggested. "Call Lila. She'll cover for you." But she'd just come from Lila's. "I'm trying to talk Rach into coming tonight," Nate had said to his friend as Luke opened the passenger door. "Is that right?" Luke had paused outside the Beamer and leaned on its roof to study his half-sister's face. "You really gonna do it?" "I don't know," Rachel had squirmed. "It'll be fun." "If you say so." "Hey, I've even got an extra gun." With a glance at the house to make sure their mother wasn't peering through a window or walking out the front door, he'd unzipped his backpack and withdrawn a small black case. Inside, extra ammo included, no charge. He'd tossed the case over the roof of the car and, panicked, she'd caught it. "I don't know, I've never—" "Doesn't matter." Nate had started the engine, but he'd still been staring at her, his dark eyes twinkling with mischief. "Come on, Rach, you'll like it. Have a blast. Get it?" He'd teased, his trademark smile slowly widening. "Promise, you'll never forget it." Well, amen to that. Truer words had never been spoken. She remembered Nate reversing out of the driveway, the tires of his car squealing against the street, just as the sound of the garage door grinding upward had reached her ears. "Mom!" Rachel's heart had nearly stopped. Frantically, she'd hidden the gun case under the rhododendron flanking the pine, just as Melinda came into view. In jeans and a sweater, Melinda had shaded her eyes with one hand. "About time you showed up, Rachel. I've been waiting. Sorry, I lost track of time." "With Lila. Doesn't surprise me," her mother had said. And then, catching sight of the blush climbing up Rachel's neck, she'd added, "Is something wrong?" "No, nothing." Rachel had hurried into the garage and slid inside the passenger seat of her mother's Camry. Craning her neck to look through the back window, She'd spied her mother staring thoughtfully down the street to the intersection where Nate's car was disappearing around a corner. Could she do it? Could she lie to her mother? Her dad, a cop? He was a detective, good at ferreting out fact from fiction. Her palms had begun to sweat as she turned around in her seat and peered through the bug-spattered windshield to her father's workbench, stretched against the far bare wood wall. She'd swallowed against her dry throat as she heard her mother's footsteps on the gravel drive before the door groaned open and Melinda slid behind the steering wheel. A bemused smile on her face, she'd glanced at her daughter and started the Camry's engine. "Do you have a crush on Nate?" "What? A crush?" Rachel had blurted. "God, Mom, this isn't 1960. "It's okay," Melinda had said with a knowing expression. "We've all had them." "I don't have a crush or anything else on Nate Moretti," she had said, and turned away, hiding the fact that she was scared spitless, her short breaths actually fogging a small corner of the window as Melinda backed out of the drive. All right, fine, no crush or whatever. Oh, shit! She had hit the brakes. The Toyota had ground to a quick stop as a kid on a bike flew past behind them, inches from the bumper. Damn it! That Ferrello boy's going to get himself killed! Did you see that? He didn't stop? Didn't see me? Holy God, and no helmet! What's his mother thinking? Letting out a frustrated breath, she'd slowly hit the gas again, backing out into the street. Do it, right now, Rachel had blurted. Is it okay if I sleep over at Lila's tonight? Her mom's expression had tightened. She didn't like Lila, though she'd never admitted it, only remarked on more than one occasion, that girl had better watch herself or she'll end up in big trouble. Lila had always dated older boys, some lots older, and now she'd settled on Luke. That fact had really gotten under her mother's skin. But at the moment, Melinda had seemed to think she was connecting some romantic dots. Oh, I get it, she'd said. You're planning to meet up with Luke and Nate. Rachel hadn't said anything to change her mind, and at the cross street, her mother had warned, Be careful, Rachel. Stay out of trouble, okay? Melinda had shot her daughter a worried glance. I will, Rachel had promised. But it had been a lie. A horrid lie. Hey, you okay? Lila said now, snapping Rachel back to the present, to the meeting and the strains of a familiar song. Wilson Phillips was singing Hold On, a popular song from grade school, the harmonized strains drifting from hidden speakers. Of course, Lila would be playing the songs that brought back all those wretched school day memories. Rachel, I asked if you were okay, Lila repeated. Her heart pounded in her ears. No, I'm not okay. I'll never be okay. I have horrible nightmares. I lost my jobs. My kids worry me to death. Our classmate was murdered, and it's the damned anniversary of the day I shot and killed my brother. Fine, she forced out with a weak smile. I'm fine. Really? Lila rolled her expressive eyes. Give me a break, because none of us are fine tonight. I don't know if we ever will be again. Frowning, she added, Anessa couldn't even pull herself together to make it. She claimed she was too upset, and that she's having a problem with her kid. On that issue, Rachel could relate. I don't know why Anessa couldn't get it together for a couple of hours, Lila said. Geez, talk about a prima donna. And come on, it's hard on all of us. We've all got teenagers with issues. Anessa Bell had belonged to the popular group in high school, one of the rich kids. She'd moved away for years, but with the passing of her father had come back to Edgewater to claim her inheritance, or so the rumor mill had it, even though, according to Lila, her husband was rich enough that she could afford to loan money to God. Lila let out a disgusted breath. I just don't get it. Anessa doesn't have a corner on being upset. We're all shocked and a little freaked out. You'd think she might want to come and talk it out with people who knew Vi. Everyone handles grief differently, Rachel said. Yeah, maybe you should give Anessa a break, Nate said, coming to their missing classmate's defense. She probably has her own issues to deal with. She's married to a guy twice her age. And that's a problem, Lila threw back. So am I. And Chuck and I, we're happy. Make that very happy. Nate shrugged one shoulder. Just saying, you never know. Well, if you ask me, she's weird about the reunion. Anessa should be embracing the community, but she spends all her time working. Can you believe that, with her money? Ever since her husband's corporation bought property around town, she spends all her time visiting the sites. I've seen her car at the Cannery, St. Augustine's, and Reacher's Farm. Did you know he bought that too? Lila's lips pinched together in disapproval. Rachel offered, It probably has more to do with trying to get a vision for the new construction. Whatever. The point is, she should be here tonight. She's in charge of the money, you know, keeping track of who's paid and who still owes, and, well, she sent a spreadsheet, so I guess that'll have to be good enough. Obviously irritated, Lila reached in her pocket again, but this time didn't come up with a cigarette. Watching her, Rachel recalled that Anessa and Lila hadn't liked each other much in high school, but that was long ago. Lately, though, Lila had been pissed that Anessa and her husband hadn't used Lila as a real estate agent when they had purchased various properties in the area, including the old cannery and St. Augustine's Hospital with its now closed private school. Lila gave up her rant. Nothing I can do about it. She touched Rachel on the shoulder. All this talk of Vi. It's depressing and just awful. Lila gave a little shudder, her bracelets rattling. I need a glass of wine. You? She asked Rachel. Not now. She shook her head. What about a double shot of whiskey? Nate suggested. Oh, you want? Lila asked, brightening a little. I've got scotch, I think. Chuck always keeps a bottle of Glenlivet. No! Nate held up his hands. I was joking. I'm good, really. But Lila was already moving away, hurrying past the pillars separating the living and dining areas. At the far end of a long table, Britt Watkins was huddled with Riva Santiago and Billy D. Johnson around an open laptop. Riva wore a sleek black suit and a white blouse, her black hair cut in layers to her shoulders. Billy D. was dressed more casually in sweats and a t-shirt, as if he'd just jogged off the practice field. His bald head shined in the glow of another chandelier as he picked up one of Britt's catering menus. Britt appeared uncomfortable in the straight-backed chair. The trio, in deep discussion over their tasks of planning food, drinks, and games or contests, had not seemed to notice that Rachel had arrived. She never listens, does she? Nate asked, shoving his hands into the pockets of his slacks and hitching his chin toward Lila. Still tall and lanky, his hair as brown and thick as she remembered, Nate would probably be a candidate for the most unchanged since graduation. A few faint lines were visible near the corners of his eyes, the beginnings of crow's feet, but other than that, he looked about the same as he had when they'd graduated. Never. Lila was already filling 2 glasses at a mirrored sideboard that was laden with trays of food, gleaming stemware, and open bottles of wine, soda, and hard liquor. In the middle of the display, 3 white candles had been lit, tiny flames flickering around a small bouquet of violets in a glass vase, obviously a tribute to Violet Sperry. Jeez, Lila must have moved on that quickly. Sadness crawled through Rachel all over again. Lila was returning with the drinks and had caught Rachel's gaze. Handing a short glass to Nate, she explained, I felt I had to do something. She touched the rim of her wine glass to Nate's, then took a long drink of wine. I couldn't just ignore the fact that she died today. Rachel didn't say anything. Right? Lila prompted. I guess. She was killed, Rach. Murdered in her own home. Last night or early this morning. I just thought, we needed to make some kind of statement. We couldn't ignore it. She graduated with us. Sure. That was so Lila. It's just so weird, I know. Another big gulp of wine. Rachel! Britt scraped her chair back. She'd finally noticed that Rachel had arrived and was blinking back tears as she awkwardly made her way around the end of the table. It's horrible, horrible. Unbelievable, Rachel said. And to her surprise, Britt hugged her for a second, pulling her close despite her baby bump. Britt dabbed at her eyes. Sorry, I'm emotional. Pregnancy hormones, We all feel it, Rachel said, hiding her surprise at being hugged by a woman who usually could barely scratch up a smile for her. Nate agreed. It's sick, he said. From the corner of her eye, Rachel noticed that Riva and Billy D had abandoned their spots at the table and were walking toward the group. Riva carried a glass of red wine, and Billy D came around the other side of the table. Oh, great. She knew she shouldn't have come. Within half a minute, everyone on the committee was clustered in the living room. I saw her at the dog groomers. The one with that stupid play on words. What's it called? Oh, Doggy Bartique. The one on 3rd Street just last week. My schnauzer needed his nails clipped. Riva reported as she joined the others in front of the cold fireplace. Anyway, she was there with her 3 dogs, and we waited at the counter making small talk, I can't believe it. Now she's gone. I hadn't seen her in years. Years. And there we were talking about the stupid dogs. It's surreal, Why would anyone... Her voice faded, and for once Riva seemed at a loss for words. She was pretty and smart, a woman who'd always used her good looks and brains to her advantage. She'd been a cheerleader, of course, and in the choir and drama club. Their senior year, raven-haired Riva had sung and danced to deliver a standout performance in Bye Bye Birdie. And for a while back then, before Lila had turned his head, Luke had dated Riva. Exclusively. Riva had been head over heels for him. Now an attorney, Riva was as slim as she had been in high school, but her features had sharpened with age. If she still harbored any bad feelings for Lila, she did a damned good job of hiding them. Then again, she'd been a pretty good actress 20 years ago. Maybe she wasn't targeted. Billy D rubbed the back of his neck, and despite the cool temperature, he was sweating, beads visible on his bald pate. Could have been a random thing. A burglary gone bad. You think? Nate asked, not hiding his skepticism. Who knows? Billy D shrugged his shoulders. These days, that kind of shit happens. Makes sense to me, Riva agreed. I'd actually rather believe that than think someone wanted to kill her specifically. Now, wait a second. Can we let this go for a few minutes and maybe, talk about the reunion? The reason we're here? Lila asked. This is too morbid, and we don't know anything anyway. It's just hard to concentrate, Britt said. Billy D nodded. Maybe I will have that drink now, he said, and made his way to the makeshift bar, his bald head gleaming under the lights. He'd been a running back in high school before an injury had sidelined him, an injury that had shattered his ankle and put him in the hospital for a week, all compliments of Luke's tackle in practice. The injury had knocked Billy D off the team for the season and, he'd complained later, cost him an athletic scholarship to the University of Colorado. Now he was a teacher at the high school and a football coach for the ever low-flying Eagles. Despite Lila trying to put everyone on the committee back on track, the conversation about Violet continued as Bon Jovi played in the background. There were more questions than answers as they tossed around theories and anecdotes, remembering things about Violet, remarking about when they'd seen her last, wondering how she died and why. Had her attacker known her? Was murder the intent? Or was Billy D right when he'd suggested the botched burglary? Had she been sexually assaulted? Could her husband be behind it? "It's all such a shame," Britt said. "A horrible tragedy, and I kind of know Leonard. He comes into the shop before work for coffee and a scone or something. We don't talk much, but I can't imagine him killing Violet. No." She shuddered visibly. "I heard he found the body. He was supposed to be on a fishing trip. Came home early." "Supposed to be?" Nate asked. "You mean he wasn't?" "Oh, no. I don't know anything about it. Just what people say when they come in." She let out a breath. "And that's all just coffee shop talk." "Gossip," Mercedes said from the couch as Lucas walked into the room. He glanced at his mother, who gave a quick nod, and then he walked to the buffet and began filling a couple of plates. Riva swirled the ruby wine in her glass. "The police always look at the family first, and I think they were having money problems. When I saw her at the dog groomers, Vi was kind of pissed. And she mentioned that Leonard wanted to buy the store from his parents, but they were at some kind of impasse. She didn't seem all that crazy about the idea, but then, who knows?" She shrugged her shoulders. "But I bet Leonard is suspect numero uno." Mercedes clicked off her phone and stood, circumventing the coffee table to stand with the rest of the group in front of the fireplace. "Riva's right. The cops always suspect the husband, or if the husband is killed, then the wife, or maybe a whacked-out kid, whoever's in line to inherit. Wait till they check the will." "They didn't have kids," Lila said. Then, eyeing Mercedes, she asked, "When was the last time you saw her?" Mercedes lifted a shoulder. "Last week. I tracked her down at the furniture store." Nate lifted his chin. "Tracked her down?" "I was trying to get an interview with her for the series. Since she was one of the witnesses at the trial and she was on the scene when Luke was killed, I thought it would be interesting to see what she had to say now." "Let me guess," Riva said. "She shut you down." Mercedes's stony expression acknowledged nothing. "She didn't want to talk about it. The damnedest thing, you know," she said, her gaze moving back to Rachel. "No one wants to be interviewed." "I wonder why," Riva tossed out. "Geez, did you stalk her?" Mercedes opened her mouth, then closed it. "I just needed a little information. It's my job." "So we've heard." Nate took another drink. "And just so you know, the next article is coming out next week." Mercedes was staring straight at Rachel. "The Tuesday edition." "Listen, could we please all get back to work?" Lila said. "All this talk about Vi isn't going to bring her back." Billy D made his way to the table, and Riva followed. Mercedes stepped closer to Rachel. "I've been trying to reach you. I've texted and called, and all I've gotten is radio silence. Because I don't want to talk about it." Rachel was going to add lamely that she'd been busy, but Mercedes didn't give her time. "I just want to ask some questions about Luke's murder for my series." "Yeah, Mercedes, I get it, we all do," Rachel said, a little louder than she'd anticipated, and Britt's eyebrows shot up. Lila's head swiveled in her direction. "You didn't call me back." "I know that, too," Rachel said, the room seeming to shrink a bit. "Why?" God, why would Mercedes corner her with everyone else around? Even Lila and Billy D in the dining room had turned to look at the small group near the couch. Nothing to say. Mercedes wasn't buying it. "Oh, come on, you were accused." "Look," Rachel said sharply, cutting her off. "I don't want to talk about what happened to Luke, okay?" Mercedes asked. "Can I quote you on that?" "No." "Jesus, Mercedes, give it a rest, would ya?" Nate said. "Have a little respect. This isn't the time or place." "There is no time or place with Rachel," Mercedes pointed out, bristling. Lila touched Mercedes's arm. "Come on, Mercy, let it go for now. It's a tough day for those of us close to Luke anyway, and now with What happened to Violet? They're just not themselves. You and Rachel can figure this out another time. Mercedes's eyes flashed. I've got tomorrow open, or Sunday before noon. Work for you? She asked Rachel, putting her on the spot. I don't know. Don't you? I keep a calendar at home. Mercedes glared at her. You have a calendar on your phone or iPad or whatever. You're a techie. Rachel stood her ground. I am, and I do, but I can't give you an answer right now. Mercy wasn't about to give up. Then, for the love of God, didn't you hear, Lila? Nate threw up a hand, his drink sloshing over the rim of his glass. He didn't care, just glared flush-faced at Mercedes. Violet's been killed, damn it! So stop! Just stop! Stay out of it, Mercedes warned. Let's all take a breath. Lila stepped between them. Sort it out later. We've got work to do. Then she noticed her son was still loading up and lingering at the buffet. Isn't that enough? She asked. Lucas looked up, caught her eye, and mumbled a quick, yeah, before heading back upstairs. When Rachel looked back at Mercedes, the petite woman was still eyeing her intently. Back in high school, Mercedes Jennings had been one of the rare girls who hadn't fallen for Luke Hollander, a girl who had called him out for being a phony. Now she finally said, Okay, Lila and Nate are right. This isn't the time and we do have work to do. I'll call you and we'll set it up. Rachel waved her off, but Mercedes couldn't stop. So check and see if Monday works for you, Rachel. We can meet at the office or I'll come to your house. That might be better. I'll bring a photographer. Name the time. Monday doesn't work, Rachel said quickly. You don't know that, Mercedes objected. Back it up! Nate's face was flushed with fury. You need to learn that no means no. Britt was suddenly on her feet, closing up her laptop. I can't handle this. Can't concentrate. It just feels wrong tonight with everything that's going on. But we have to, Lila insisted. I can't. Being here talking about high school with Violet, I'm out of here. No, Britt, listen. Try to put your grief aside, will ya? Lila was getting pissed. Violet would have wanted us to... Bullshit, Mercedes said. Violet wanted no part of this reunion. You said so yourself. I was still trying to talk her into it, Lila admitted. The ironic thing about it was that I was going to put her in charge of the remembrance table, and now she'll be a big part of it.